recapping when we get back. I'm going to file cloture on 3 nominees, the NLRB nominee, Gwen Wilcox, and FCC Commissioner Ana Gomez, as well as the 3 Fed nominees to fill up the Fed. We're filing those tonight for immediate votes when we return. And I have very good news. It looks like we're going to confirm in one block more than a...
They are finally addressing this, everybody. Lawmakers in Congress from both parties are showing support for another relief plan. The new plan would actually directly provide thousands of dollars to millions of low-income households that are struggling to pay for their monthly expenses. But some Republicans have signaled that they would like to implement strict eligibility requirements. So make sure to keep watching this, everybody, to find out what stimulus checks are going to be sent to you. Now, first of all, everybody, a bipartisan group of House members are planning on a recent legislative deal and plans to work on a proposal to beef up an existing tax credit for families with young children. The Problem Solvers Caucus has a group, and they're planning to launch a subcommittee to work on issues associated with the child tax credit. It's currently providing up to $2,000 per child, and it's a smaller benefit than one in place during 2021. It will be cut in half and applied to many fewer households, everybody. But a Ways and Means Committee member said the child tax credit came up during discussions about a debt limit this year, as the Problem Solvers Caucus aimed to build consensus on the measures that would help the American people out. The Problem Solvers Caucus includes 64 members, evenly split between Republicans and Democrats, who aim to work across the aisle. The group typically requires 75% support among its members to endorse proposals. Whether a bipartisan tax package comes together this year may hinge on negotiations around the child tax credit. A representative said he has an interest in aiding the low-income households that earn too little to get the benefits under the bill, and he has convincingly won recent elections and is still on the Democrats' target list for next year. He plans to ask representatives to be involved in the child tax credit discussions. And when Democrats were considering extending the child tax credit expansion, he said the benefits should be better targeted to benefit low-income households for a longer period of time, and the current maximum credit applies to $400,000. Even representatives specifically praised the party proposal to permanently make the credit fully refundable, which would have meant that the families with little or nothing in federal amount income taxes could still claim the full amount. Republicans have said they're not interested in the revival of Democrats' signature expansion. Still, there were hints at a finances, taxation, and IRS oversight committee hearing last week of potential interest in working across the aisle on the child credit. Even some subcommittee chairmen actually agreed on this, and economic growth has benefited the wealthy while keeping middle class behind and lowering the income thresholds for the poverty. Now, the senators are holding a series of roundtable discussions for lawmakers to work on the child credit and ways to alleviate the poverty. And so far, this Congressional Budget Office has estimated that making the current law and current child tax credit permanent will cost $600 billion plus through the fiscal year 2033. While enlarging it back to the 2021 policy, it can cost up to $100 billion a year just to get things done. One-time payments will be arriving for millions of Americans soon, and the administration has approved $39 billion in relief. State lawmakers are now approving legislation that would allow more low-income households to receive SNAP benefits. The SNAP program has undergone modifications this year, affecting 42 million citizens participating in the program. SNAP benefit amounts vary based on people's household size, monthly income, and other expenses. The plan faces an uphill battle. Efforts to pass laws capping the price of insulin for insured Americans or uninsured people or those with private insurance, and they failed in Democratic-controlled Congress last year. Another part of the law that the administration hopes will have ripple effects for Americans is the requirement for the pharmaceutical companies to pay a rebate to Medicare when they raise the cost of prescriptions faster than inflation. Now the EPA also has unveiled a pair of proposals to dramatically cut carbon emissions and spur the industry toward full electrification. The first of the proposed standards would target emissions from passenger cars, vans, and light trucks, while the second batch would apply to heavier duty vehicles, such as delivery trucks, dump trucks, and buses. The EPA estimates that if finalized, the rules will lead to the electrification of 2/3 of new sedans, as well as 50% of heavier trucks by 2032.
Well, everyone here at the Morgan Hill Senior Center welcome the Social Security boost, but also point out they've been around long enough to keep it all in perspective.
How's everybody doing this this morning.
The 85 seniors who show up almost daily here inside the city's Centennial Rec Center were dressed in pink today to boost awareness about breast cancer. The Senior Center is a place to connect and socialize, but also a place to cut costs. And for those on a fixed income, that's key, especially with the price of food skyrocketing.
We have a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. There's a ton of information on this video that you have to watch because there's a stimulus payment that you need to know. Exciting news, a few more states have announced brand new plans that will just provide extra stimulus aid to low income and households during this winter time. There are over 9 new batches of stimulus payments that are actually set to go out to everybody to the many Americans in need of stimulus payments. So, as inflation continues to impact the United States, well, many new proposals are finally beginning to be signed into law. Anyone living in these 6 states may be receiving some extra cash sometime next year. Many of these payments are part of programs that start in 2022, but will not fully wrap up until 2023. Certain requirements will have to be met in order to receive these checks, such as filing a tax at a time, and some of these benefits may not be delivered to recipients until 2023. New Jersey homeowners are set to receive some extra cash soon, and the amount that New Jersey homeowners receive just depends on how much money you make. So with those making less than $150,000 a year, you'll receive a $1,500 stimulus check in the mailbox. Renters will also be getting a rebate though they need to be making less than $150,000 annually even to get this check. Roughly 2 million residents will qualify for these rebates, which are scheduled to be paid by recipients on May 2023. The Golden State stimulus payment has already been given to many Californians. Though roughly 5% of recipients are still waiting. The final wave of direct deposits and state-issued debit cards are also set to be sent to you by the end of next month. So many residents of Colorado have already received their payments before September, though anybody who has filed an extension will have their payment delivered to them by January 31st in the new year. The payment will be worth either $750 or for about $1,500 for the joint filers. States like Idaho, South Carolina, and even Pennsylvania have also agreed to provide relief checks and payments to help residents that are experiencing financial hardships due to the crisis, as rising prices continue to weigh on households all across the country. Families are feeling stretched too thin, and according to a monthly data report, as of December, 63% of Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck. Means everybody is that although consumer prices again rose, real average hourly earnings are down again 2% from a year earlier. It leaves many Americans in a bind as inflation, higher prices, force more people to dip into their cash reserves or lean on credit cards just when interest rates are at its peak. Already credit card balances are surging, up to 15% in the most recent quarter, the largest annual bump in more than 20 years. At the same time, credit card rates are now more than 20% on average. It's an all-time high. Still rising, folks. And compared with a year ago, 32% of all consumers are saving less than they were before. Among those who said they were struggling financially, half are unable to save and have no savings at all. A separate survey even found that a third of working adults feel somewhat very uncomfortable about their